800 children did not report to school that next day. When my child was one of them, and she has an absence. I think that that should be reconsidered and reevaluated because that was very traumatic. And also, I had to hear about those threats from somebody in Virginia. People out of state were calling me and telling me what was going on before I even got any type of information from the district. And my last comment is, you know, I don't know who's reading the emails or previewing the voicemails or text messages that's going out, but the messages that we receive, I would say at least 80% of them have some type of error. You really have to go back and read it and interpret or try to understand what's being said. I think that that is a very high rate of error. And as a parent, it's almost embarrassing to get those messages. And most of the time, I don't even read them because I don't want to, I get so crazy about it. But anyway, I think if we could just take a step back, you guys are the educators and you are the ones that are teaching our children. And I just would expect a little bit more accuracy or some more professionalism out of those messages that come across. I believe the last one that I remember seeing indicated pubic instead of public. And spell check or some type of check got to be in place to be used. And then I'll end it on a happy note and say Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays to everybody. And let's just try to do better.
The next speaker, when you are opened up, please state your full name. You are listed only as Robert. Please state your full name.
Hello, I'm Robert Simon, a 9th grade representative at ESAMS in New Haven. I believe that the security is a serious issue in our schools. Our middle school has a massive drug problem. If you walk on the 2nd or 3rd floor, it reeks of pot. You go into the bathrooms and all you can smell is weed. It's terrible. We have 2 security guards with metal detectors who open up your backpacks and search, and drugs are still getting into our school. It's an embarrassment. And especially with the school shooter threat that happened recently, it's ridiculous, the lack of security. In a populous city such as New Haven that's getting these shooter threats, there should be more things in place to prevent drugs and weapons from getting into our school. People are bringing knives, weed, and could be bringing guns. And it's unacceptable that our school system can't deal with these issues. I believe that another security guard or more frivolous checks, maybe a, what's it called? One of those wands that you could search on the people would be adequate or would help to ease some of the security issues. Because if people walk through the metal detectors and they beep, they just let them walk through they don't make them like see if they have any metal items on. They just let them walk right into school. They don't check the backpacks at all. They open up the pocket, don't look into it. And even if it has multiple pockets, they only open up one and hand it through. And since we only have 2 security guards, the lines are long. We have to wait for half an hour to get into school. So we end up being late to classes sometimes. And it's ridiculous. I think that really we need some police officers to come to the school and do a search because clearly the district isn't handling it well enough. Thank you. Goodbye.
Our next speaker is Kirsten.
Hello. Hi, this is Kirsten Holtz McFadden, ESAMS as well. That was my former student that just spoke. I don't know if you're going to have another board meeting before the end of the year, and just in case you don't, or I'm not able to come, I would like to thank Dr. Jackson MacArthur and Mr. Conaway for their service on the Board of Education. It has really been a pleasure to see them advocate strongly for our students and our teachers, and I'm going to miss them. I'm going to miss them. They were the voice of reason, two of the voices of reason in many of the subjects, and they weren't afraid not to be in the majority. They were not afraid not to speak truth to power. And I appreciate them. And I thank them for their service. And I look forward to continuing to see what they do after they leave the board and the helping of our students and our staff. You know, sometimes we have to maybe work on the outside if we're not allowed to be on the inside. I have other issues with ESOMs. And hopefully we will be able to have a meeting soon. Last week when we had the ice storm, several people almost fell. One person actually did fall in the parking lot. And this has been an issue since we moved out to West Haven. They do not come out and put anything on the ground prior to us getting into the building. Not only do we have to worry about these threats, you know, children that are out of control, we can't even get out of our car and make it into the building to face those threats and children being out of control. If facilities cannot get over to ice our parking lots as they have promised in the past, then we need a delay. Unless you want lots of lawsuits. Because teachers are falling under the car and have been doing so for the past few years. And they're just so kind that they have not sued. But they need to, because it's ridiculous. We have been promised that we would have, that the parking lots would be treated. And then we're told that they don't start working until 8 o'clock. Well, we get to work at 7:30 at the latest. Many people are there at 6:30. So if you're not going to at least have the parking lots ready for us when we come to work, then you need to have a delay. Or maybe we'll just have a delay, because I'm not willing to risk my life to come into work and fall in a parking lot and be injured just so I can sue. I don't want to sue. I want to be healthy. I already have enough physical ailments. I don't need one more from falling on ice, and neither do my fellow co-worker. I am the steward, so I'm coming here as the steward of my building to say that this is unacceptable. This is unacceptable that you're putting us in a very unsafe condition just from getting out of our car to go into school in the morning. And delays count. If you can't get the parking lot done, give us a 2-hour delay. Let the sun hit the ground, something. If we do a 2-hour delay, the day still counts. There's no need for us to be there and injured. And I guess I will end on a happy note as well after saying all of that. Enjoy your holidays, and maybe all have a wonderful new year as well.
Our next speaker is Tony Criscolo. Ms. Criscolo, you may speak.
Hi, good evening, everyone. I guess this is ESOM's night, and Robert Simon is my present student, so I see a trend going on here. I too would like to give my thanks to Dr. Jackson and to Mr. Conaway for their service, and to thank all of the board members. It's a pretty thankless job. We might as well face facts. And I know you have to hear this all the time. I did just want to let you know, not specifically to ESOMs, but I want you to know how much that we are affected, students and teachers, by the past 2 years of COVID and by the present chaos and disorder in our schools. It has had a profound effect on us, more than what I ever imagined that it would be. One of the things that students and teachers are finding quite disturbing is they are very aware that discipline is lacking in the schools. There appear to them to be no consequences, few suspensions, no expulsions. And one of my students asked me, what do we have to do to get expelled here from school? Or what does somebody else have to do to get expelled from school? I think it's It's a dangerous situation because it is leading other students who normally are very, very cooperative and compliant to start to act out. I have found some of the most unsuspected reactions from students because they have the idea that they can get away with it. They know that if they are arrested, they won't be charged. They won't be prosecuted. They barely will be suspended, and they will not be expelled. This is a recipe for disaster in our schools. I understand that you are trying to help re-socialize kids and get them back in. This is not the way. You are sending them down a dangerous path, and we are all on that path with them. So I beg you, as the policymaking decisions are made for discipline and consequences in the district, keep in mind, schools need order, the students need order, the teachers need order, and we need to feel safe. Right now, we're not feeling too safe, and it's taking a toll. So please consider this when you're making your decisions as we go along. And I too wish everyone a Merry Christmas, a Happy New Year, and thank you again for all that you have done for us.
Madam President, that concludes the hands raised.
Madam President, point of order, Dr. Jackson is trying to get in. She'd like to be promoted from.
She was there.
She was here and somehow she got out and she's trying to get back in.
It's been taken care of.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bolton. Thank you, Mr. Wilcox and Dr. White. We'll move on to the action items, the approval of the board meeting minutes of November 22nd. The motion to accept the minutes. Mr. Conway,
So moved.
Mr. Wilcox,
Second.
any discussion? Seeing none, we'll vote to accept the meeting minutes of November 22nd. Mr. Wilcox,
Yes.
Mr. Conway,
Yes.
Dr. Jackson,
Yes.
Mr. Bolton,
Yes,
Ms. Roman, Mr. Fiore,
Yes.
Mayor Elicker,
Yes.
and I'm a yes as well, and so the minutes pass. Personnel report, Dr. Tracy.
Thank you very much, Madam President. Good evening, board members and community members who may be watching or listening. This week, or I should say, we just started this week, but last week has been a very difficult week for New Haven Public Schools, and I'll explain later what I meant by that. Let me get into the personal report. I'm asking for an amendment to the personal report on the action items. There was one item, I think Ms. Mack emailed it to the board, that due to the time frame in which it came in and due to the fact that the school has been without a sixth grade teacher for a while, we were happy to ask for an amendment to put this teacher on the blue sheet, the one that has a double star. So I'm asking the board to amend just to have that item. I know you don't like amended items, but I'm asking for this one to be on the blue sheets for this evening. That's Shafu Dabre, I think it is pronounced.
Motion to make the amendment.
Madam President, I'm not quite
Mr.
sure.
Bolton,
I'm not quite sure what the amendment is. I don't know if I
Add
have
her
it
to
in front of
the
me.
Add her to the list.
But who is her? Do we have a, you said we have an email?
Yes, Lisa sent an email. It's a grade 6 teacher.
Can we read that into the record so we know what we're amending?
Do I say that or
Sure.
Madam President, I was sharing, so.
Sure, yes. Go ahead, Dr. Tracy.
Are you saying I should share it or? I'm
Wh-
asking.
Whoever from the administration wants to share it, I would.
Okay, I'm asking that the name, Shafu Dabre, grade 6 teacher for Brendan Rogers School, be added to the action items on the personnel report.
As a,
Yes,
Go ahead, Mr.
is
Cohen.
that as a hire?
yes,
Oh, okay. All right.
At what range?
it's 79,000.
If I may add, it's Lisa Mack, HR Director. So it's
Okay.
on, the personnel report was sent to you all at 1:03 PM and it was sent by Ms. Ray Johnson. And it's on the first page of the amended personnel report. And again, the name is Shafoy Debris. She's a grade 6 teacher at Brennan Rogers. She comes in with 13 years of experience and she would come in as step O at the master's level at $79,838. This position has been open for some time now. We've had a difficult time filling the position, so we were able to secure someone. And we didn't want to hold up until the new year to get her on board. She's been cleared to start as soon as tomorrow, and the need is certainly there.
Ms. Mack, I'm trying to find it in my email. What time did you say it was sent?
So it was sent at 1:03 PM today to the board members. I can read forward if you like, and it was sent by Ray Johnson.
Ray Johnson.
Along with the transportation update, there's also a superintendent's report that was amended. I can read forward if you guys like. You need to have it.
If you don't mind sending it to me, I would be happy to read it as an amendment. I would volunteer to do that if I could have it in front of me.
Would you please resend that to me and send it to my Gmail account because I did not receive it.
Okay.
Yeah, I do not have it either.
That means ready to send it.
I don't have it either.
Okay, I'll send it to the entire board and as well as to your personal accounts.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Madam Chair,
Dr. Jackson?
I just like to make a note that most of us work during the day, and that when we get stuff like important stuff like this, like at 1:03, like I just now am knowing about something that was sent at 1:03, just because you're racing to get to the meeting as soon as you get up from work, and you may not have checked anything. So I just wanted to get that out there, that it's when we have stuff like that, maybe some kind of SOS could be sent out. Hey, check this because it was sent this afternoon.
Yeah, maybe a text or something.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Dr.
What
Jackson.
was just reported to me that it seemed to have been sent to board members and not Board of Education. And so that's why I didn't go through.
Ah, okay.
Sorry about that.
Mr. Wilcox?
Yeah, I just wanted to point out it is posted now, amended. Blue sheet is posted as far as the meeting materials go. Maybe somebody could share it. I would do it or offer to do it, but my computer's acting up and I'm on my phone right now for the Zoom, so I'm not going to be able to share it, but it is listed there if somebody would like to pull it up.
Dr. White is going to.
It was just sent to the Board of Education members now, so the Board of Education, you all should have received it.
I have not, here it is. Okay, I have it. I believe. Yeah. And you said it's the, okay, it's a double starred.
Yes.
Well, I would be happy to make the motion if nobody else is ready to do it.
Thank you, Mr. Bolton.
Madam President.
Mr. Bolton, go ahead.
All right, Madam President, I would move that we accept the amended blue sheet, which includes Shafu Dabri, Southern Connecticut University, MA, grade 6 to Brennan Rogers Magnet School General Funds. I don't think I have to read the fund number in, if everybody's okay with that, at $79,838, step O, 13 years experience, local 933, effective date 12/14/2021.
For a second. Mr. Wilcox,
Second.
any discussion? Seeing none, we'll vote on the amended personnel report.
I ask that the board accept this personnel report.
Dr. Jackson?
I should point out to the board, let me point this out, on page 2.
Hold on, Dr. Tracy, because we're in the middle of the vote right now. Give me 1 second. Is Dr. Jackson no longer in the meeting?
He's gone again.
Yep, I brought it back over.
Okay, let's go with Mr. Conway.
Yes.
I'm
Mr.
sorry, I
Bolton?
keep dropping.
Mr. Bolton? Okay.
Yes.
Dr. Jackson?
Yes,
Ms. Roman still not on? Mr. Fiore?
Yes.
Mr. Wilcox?
Yes.
Mayor Elicker?
Yes.
And I am a yes as well. And so personnel report passes. Go ahead, Dr. Tracy.
I was, is the personnel report passed or is it the amendment?
The amended personnel report.
Okay, so I wanted to point out on that report, over on page 2, you had passed that already, but we just wanted to add it there to show you when Miss Streets will be taking her sabbatical and at what cost. So we make sure we add that there so you can see that very clearly. Just wanted to point that out. In addition to that, even though this information only item, we have 3 administrators who are retiring this year for a total of almost 100, more than 100 years of experience put together. That's a long time. Working in New Haven, many of them over 30 years, 37, some of them, they're retiring from New Haven Public School. Miss Milvia Concas, supervisor of psychology, George Flanagan, assistant principal at Barack Obama, and Harry Welfare from Augusta Lewis Shoup School. It started out many years ago with Mr. Welfare. And then we have about 12 teachers. We have about 2 paras who are also resigning. We have 12 teachers who have resigned. So that's information on the item. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Tracy. Mr. Bolton?
Thank you, Madam President. I just have a question about these purple sheets, the information only. These folks who are transferring from one position to another, are we to assume that these positions don't have any changing in funding, even though you have a person going from a grade 3 teacher at King Robinson to a physical chemistry teacher in high school, the salaries don't change?
I may add, the salaries do not change. Internal transfers is transfer only in the position, different titles, but their salary does not change.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Okay, finance and operations, Mr. Wilcox?
All right, thank you very much. Just as typical, if anybody would like anything moved separately, please let me know. And then I've also asked President Rivera to move the first item, which is a Title I grant of the $12 million, $15,000 is dedicated to go to Clifford Beers. And as everybody knows, I recuse myself on anything connected to Clifford Beers because my spouse works on a federally funded project there.
Thank you, Mr. Wilcox. Mr. Wilson? You're muted, Mr. Wilson.
Thank you, Madam President. Mr. Chair, I would request that you separate out item 18, the agreement with New Light Investigations.
Yes, will do.
Thank you.
Okay, and so I will move Abstract 1, Title 1, Part A grant in the amount of 12,100,572. Let's see, for July 1, 2021 through June 30th, 2022.
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, so we'll vote on just the abstract 1 at the moment. Mr. Wilcox,
Recused?
Dr. Jackson,
Yes.
Mr. Bolton,
You're on mute.
He said yes.
Yes.
Mr. Conway,
Yes.
Mr. Fiore,
Yes.
Mayor Elicker,
Yes.
and I'm yes as well, and so abstract 1 passes. Go ahead, Mr. Wilcox.
All right, thank you. I'd like to go ahead and make a motion, and that would be that I move that we approve item 18, the agreement for New Light Investigations.
For a second.
Second.
Thank you, Mayor Elicker. Any discussion? Mr. Bolton?
Thank you, Madam President. This item sticks out to me because it's similar to the what we did with the attorney that we have. It's an agreement to hire a company with the city of New Haven, but the new city of New Haven apparently is pretty much the supervisor of this contract, though we are paying a little more than half of the cost of the agreement. I'm not quite sure why we're doing the agreement. I'm not quite sure why we're doing these investigations. I'm not quite sure why we're hiring a firm out of town. I can't remember where they're from to do these investigations. And I'm not quite sure how we came about agreeing that this company should be the company to do these investigations, quite frankly. So it makes me a little uncomfortable and a little leery about doing it. Again, correct me if I'm wrong, but we're not going to be supervising this contractor. The city of New Haven is going to be supervising the contractor, though we are paying a little more for the contractor than the city of New Haven is doing. So I'm uncomfortable with that. So I'm going to vote against it. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Mr. Bolton. Any further
Madam
discussion?
President, I can't raise my hand.
Okay, go ahead, Dr. Jackson.
My question, what kind of, what will they be doing? What are they being hired to do? Like, what type of investigations?
So we might want to have Ms. Mack or somebody speak to this as well. Reading from the backup material for it that was presented in the Finance and Operations Committee meeting, it says that New Light Investigations shall conduct necessary investigations into various complaints of employee misconduct of employees of the city of New Haven, which would also in this case include Board of Education. Scope of the investigation shall entail gathering appropriate documents, reports of other city offices or agencies, interviewing witnesses as needed, gathering or analyzing documentary or electronic evidence, et cetera. So it was presented as connected to HR. So maybe Dr. Tracy, if you'd like to have somebody speak on it.
Dr. Tracy's muted.
Oh, I'm muted. Ms. Mack, could you speak some more on that?
So I think Mr. Wilcox summarized it pretty well. It is an external counsel, well, not counsel, investigator who assist in investigation of cases that we may have pending. We have this is a continuation, a renewal of a contract that we had last year, partnering with the city of New Haven. We kind of pretty much split the bill in half. And so the services that, if we utilize the services, they would be investigated on our behalf. Given a number of complaints or cases that we have pending open, we will be utilizing those services. We did use a large sum of that first contract with security in a lot of their workplace investigations. So it is a resource and a contract that we're renewing that is helpful simply because it is a lot less expensive to use this investigator as opposed to using external counsel. So it's been a great resource, and we have just wanted to renew the contract to utilize those services going forward for our investigations. Yes.
Thank you, Ms. Mack. Mr. Bolton?
Thank you, Madam President. With all due respect to Ms. Mack, I've read some of the materials a couple of days ago. I've been busy with some other stuff. I really haven't had to. I wish I could have got to it earlier to you guys. But my reading of the backup material was that this wasn't a renewal contract, that this was a new contract. Firstly, secondly, that it wasn't half the cost, that we were paying a little over half the cost for this contract. And I'm also wondering who's actually supervising this contractor, who's responsible for managing this contract. And my understanding from the materials that I wrote, that I read, it's not the Board of Education, it's the City of New Haven who signed the contract. And I've been on this board for several years. I've never seen a contract like this before, except for the contract that we have with our Corp Counsel. I think I would remember us approving this last year. So if this was done without our approval because it was under a certain amount of money, then maybe I missed it, but I don't remember ever passing a contract like this. So is this a renewal or isn't it a renewal? Thank you, Madam President.
Mr. Lamb, you want to share a little insight from your expertise, because and Attorney Lexiotti may be able to weigh in as well.
The only information that I received from the city was that this was a renewal of a contract. I was not here last year, so I'm not aware that this is not a renewal. The information that I was given stated that it was a renewal, so that's how we proceeded it to be.
So New Light did investigative work on behalf of the for employees who are under collective bargaining agreements with the City of New Haven but are assigned to the Board of Ed. That is the work that they did last year. I'm not 100% sure if they did any other work, but certainly in the last fiscal year, they did that work, particularly with regard to factual investigations of security guard employment matters. So they have done investigative work for the city and on behalf of the Board of Education in the prior fiscal year. And so I think that's where why it gets referred to as a renewal. But this is a new contract for this current fiscal year with the amount to be split, $50,000 and $49,000 between the city and the Board of Ed. But it is it is primarily, I mean, I think it's intended to be all employee factual investigations in connection with disciplinary matters. And it is, for work that's assigned by either Board of Ed, Human Services, Board of Ed HR, and Labor Relations, and city side labor relations. So the work that will be done for the, with regard for the Board of Ed will be supervised by Board of Ed, HR, and HR department, and the Labor Relations coordinator. The work on the city side will be supervised by the city Labor Relations director, and to the extent involves any other departments others in the city.
Thank you, Alexiadis. Mr. Bolton?
Hope that answers the questions. You're welcome.
Thank you, Madam President. I think it did answer my question. So the answer is that the Board of Ed did not have a contract with this company last year. The city did. The city is now claiming that some of these expenses were paid for Board of Ed activities. So now they want to share the cost with us. I sort of understand that, but I think that there has to be a larger conversation with this board and the city about how we do that, because I'm seeing more and more the city moving their cost over to the Board of Ed. And in this case, the 50,000 was Board of Ed, and the 49 was the city. So if you're going to start moving things over, I think that's what it was. Maybe I'm wrong because I don't have it in front of me at this point, but that's what I think I remember. So I feel a little uncomfortable with us starting to move these expenses over without having a larger conversation about how we do that. I understand the need to do that, even though I don't know if I absolutely agree with it all the time. But I do think we need to have a larger conversation. And another question I have about this, there was a bunch of security people out last year for a bunch of different reasons, including one where we saw on a tape some security officers were carrying some bottles of water out or something. Were all of those investigations part of the costs that were incurred by the city, or are these other costs that we're not aware of? Because we're often not aware of all of the stuff that's going on. And then you say, well, you had costs, we want you to cover the costs in the future. We should have an idea of what those costs are that we're covering. So the question is, what were those costs last year? And we always say that it's going to save us money until it doesn't save us money. Right now it's $50,000, and in the middle of the year we're going to get some notice that it's going up another $15,000, $20,000, $25,000, as all these investigations always do. So is this one of those contracts? What was it? How do they phrase it? The chair of the committee could help me with that. Is it like an not to exceed? Right, not to exceed. Is this one of these not to exceed contracts, or can it possibly go up? Well, even the not to exceed goes up. But I just hope that we have a larger conversation in the future about how we share these costs if we're going to continue to do this. It's kind of creeping right now, and until it becomes the norm, then it won't creep anymore to just be there. And I don't want it to become the norm. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Mr. Bolton. Mayor Elder and then Mr. Wilcox.
Yeah, I mean, if board members need more information on this, I presume this item isn't terribly urgent. We can wait till next time to vote on it. But I did want to respond to the comment about the city pushing more and more costs onto the Board of Ed. Other than Attorney Alexiadis' shared costs, I don't think that's a real fair depiction of what's going on. And it's always disappointing to have the New Haven Public Schools versus the city or vice versa. We work together. We're a team. We try to support each other in many, many different ways. So I just don't think that's an accurate reflection of what's going on.
Thank you, Mayor Elder. Mr. Wilcox.
Yes, thank you. Just to clarify, as Mr. Goldson was asking, this is a not to exceed. In the contract materials, it says that a maximum of $50,000 can be applied to investigations of Board of Education employee misconduct, and a maximum of $49,000 can be applied to the City of New Haven employees. We did have the question, I think it might have been Mr. Conaway, clarify that, we don't, I don't remember who asked it, but it was asked we don't incur costs on this unless our HR folks or the superintendent or designate is requiring the investigation. It also says in this contract that it is investigation and complaints of employee misconduct. It doesn't mention about any other folks, just employees. So that's, I just wanted to clarify that piece that was there. So it's a not to exceed. And I also think that I think that we should add this. We've now, for the last 2 years, have had reports in the Finance and Operations Committee about legal expenses. And I think that we should add this to that report as well, so that it'll be reported after the fact, just like with the attorney costs. You know, what were the investigation costs as well? So that idea of trust but verify, and look at things and to see just how much of this $50,000 maximum was actually expended. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wilcox. Dr. Jackson, you had your hand up, your virtual hand up earlier. Did you?
Yes.
you no longer
I
have to-
think Mr. Wilcox answered it. So this money is not to exceed, meaning they invoice us. This is not a retainer. We just pay them the 50,000. They invoice us, and then that's how they get paid. It's not to exceed 50. Am I correct with that, Mr. Wilcox?
That's my understanding. That's what I just read out of the proposal here in the backup materials from the Finance and Operations Committee meeting. If I'm incorrect on that, I would hope that somebody would correct me.
That is correct, Mr. Wilcox and Dr. Jackson.
Okay. Yes, thank you. That's why I took my hand down, because he answered the question. Thank you.
Thank you. I wasn't sure. You said you were having problems with raising the virtual hand. So it's fine.
Yeah, I figured it out. Thank you.
Okay. You're welcome. Attorney Alexiadis and then Mr. Golson. You're muted.
Thank you, Madam President. With regard to whether this is a matter of any urgency or could be deferred until next month, I would just opine that it would be better if it were acted on today, because we have at least one pending investigation request from Human Resources on with regard to a Board of Ed employee, and we would like to get that investigation moving right away. Part of the reason for going outside and to a private investigator firm is for efficiency, so it can be handled more quickly than it could be internally or by outside counsel. So we do have one pending investigation that HR would like to send there right away. So, thank you.
Thank you, Attorney Alexiadis. Mr. Golson.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam President. Two things. One is I appreciate the comments from the board chair, the committee chair, that these funds will only be used to investigate staffers and not board members. Am I interpreting your comments correctly, Mr. Wilcox?
The information in this proposal says specifically complaints of employee misconduct of employees of the city or the board.
Thank you. And the second point I'd like to make is to respond to Mayor Elliger. If my comments were misunderstood, or if I did not say what I meant to say, and that was not that the city is pushing its costs onto the board. If I said that, I didn't mean that, and I don't see that happening at this point. I just hope that it doesn't. So I like to stop the creep from happening. I was a little surprised to see that the board was paying a little more than the city was paying, particularly since this was at first an all city contract. And that's weird to see the board at 50 and the city at 49, as opposed to the other way around or equal. I just want to make sure we don't start that creep. But yes, please accept my apologies if it appeared as though I was making a slight at the city. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Mr. Golson. Mayor Elicker.
I appreciate that, Mr. Goldson. And I think if I had packaged this together, I might have flipped those two numbers for ease, but I did not.
Thank you, Mayor Oliver. All right, seeing no further discussion, we'll vote on F&O agreement number 18. Dr. Jackson,
Yes.
Mr. Wilcox,
Yes.
Mr. Conway,
Yes.
Mr. Fiore,
Yes.
Mr. Goldson,
Yes, with reservations.
Mayor Elicker,
Yes.
and I am a yes as well. And so agreement number 18 passes. Please proceed, Mr. Wilcox.
All right, I'm going to make a motion then. I'd like to move that we approve the remaining abstract, the remaining 19 agreements, and the 4 change orders as listed in the action items.
For a second.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Conway. Any discussion? All right, so we'll vote on the remaining F&O items. Mr. Wilcox,
Yes.
Dr. Jackson,
Yes.
Mr. Conway,
Yes.
Mr. Goldson,
Yes.
Ms. Roman, Ms. Here, Mr. Fiore,
Yes.
Mayor Elicker,
Yes.
and I'm a yes as well. So those items pass. Students report.
Okay, all right, I have a list of things to talk about, as the past couple weeks has been very eventful. A couple basic things, and then we get to the complex things. Students still do not have water in schools. It's a travesty. Students do not have water in schools. They have gym class and they cannot drink water. It's something that needs to be worked on still. And, you know, it's a fact that we need water in schools. It was mentioned earlier, but I could reiterate it. There is a drug problem in the bathrooms and halls of probably every high school in New Haven. You know, as a student, I experience that all the time. You do smell drugs in the halls, and it's pretty disgusting. Another issue is, in light of the threats, there probably should have been a mental health day. I know from personal experience, even though I didn't think the threats are credible, I still had some pretty bad anxiety about it. I knew a friend who had to go to home, even though they didn't believe the threats, they still had an anxiety attack on just everything that was happening at the time. I understand why we didn't have a mental health day, but I think it would have been the better decision to do so, in light that a lot of students felt unsafe that day and the day before that, and it just wasn't a good situation all around, but I think it could have been handled better. And then in light of the threats, I think students, at least the ones that have talked to me, they have particularly highlighted the fact that they don't think the security is being as efficient as they can be. They feel like it's not a real security in the schools. They don't feel safe when they're there. They don't think they're effective. Some prime examples is that when a student is checked in their bag, like again mentioned earlier, it really isn't a check. It's barely looking inside the bag and then moving on. And then if you do go through the metal detector and you go off, they don't search you most of the time. And I understand it, because if you did that for every student, the line would take 4 times as long. But it's the reality that a lot of the students I talk to don't feel safe with the security we have right now. And that's definitely been highlighted by the threats towards the schools. That's what I have.
Thank you, Mr. Fiore. Mr. Bolton. You're muted.
You're muted.
Thank you, Madam President. Even though it's the last meeting of the year and we want to try to end off in a very peaceful and mellow note. I want to thank Mr. Fiore for his report. And I got to tell you, it dismays me. This water thing, we've been talking about since the beginning of the year. We talked about it in the last year, and we talked about the lack of the ability to give for our children to have access to the water fountains and so on, and not providing water, not hydrating our kids in these schools is, I don't understand why we're still having that problem. I just don't. I know some teachers are actually buying water themselves. We shouldn't be having that issue. But if what our student representative is saying is true, and we've heard it now from several people, including our student rep, we have to get that resolved as soon as possible. It's just not a good thing. The drugs I'm really concerned about is something that we as older folks, it did happen in our schools. I mean, we know that kids were getting high, but they weren't getting high to the point where the hallways were filled with smell of marijuana. It just didn't happen. They went out to the courtyard, they went around the corner, snuck behind a tree, whatever they did, they didn't do it so that it was easy to identify and catch in the school. So even though marijuana is legal, it's not legal in our schools. And I hope that we find a way to resolve that problem. But we do want to resolve it without making our schools feel like jails, right? Which is why I don't know how I feel about this whole security issue that was brought up by Mr. Fiore. I mean, we do want to provide the kids and the teachers and so on with the feeling that they're coming into safe schools, but we don't want to make them into prisons. We don't want to accentuate the school to jail pipeline. And so how do we do that without making our kids feel as though they are criminals just by walking into their schools? So I hope that we could find a way to make, I don't know what the solution is. I clearly don't know what the solution is. I would tell you what it is. But I hope that we could find a way to make our schools feel secure without making them feel like fortresses or jails. Again, Mr. Fiore, thank you for your report.
Thank you, Mr. Bolton. Mr. Fiore and then Dr. Jackson.
I did want to say, upon reflection, I know that report sounded pretty bleak and negative, and I do apologize for maybe the tone I set with that. It's just, if I'm being honest, it's how a lot of high schools feel right now. There's a lot being stacked against them. Not to mention COVID is still a problem. People are still suffering from that. There's COVID cases, throughout the schools, and students are suffering from that. I hate to end on a negative note. So I could end it on that teachers are working very, very hard recently. I noticed that in a lot of the teachers, for example, like Mr. Goldson mentioned, teachers are, not that it's their responsibility, but teachers are bringing in waters to the schools for the students. Specifically, Jennifer Sarja, who was at my school, sadly left. She worked with a company to get us water jugs and water in cups so that students can have access to water. It still doesn't fulfill the needs of every student, but it's a good work. It's good progress. It's sad that teachers have to bring in water themselves or try to fix the problem themselves. And yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Fiore. Dr. Jackson.
I just want to thank the students tonight. The student who spoke in public comment and our student rep, Anthony, for their courage tonight and their honesty about what is going on. And I really think that, Anthony is one of our board members. The other guy, I think he went out on a line to come on and say what is happening in his school. I was really struck with how they both are like, we want a better place to go to school. We want to feel safe. I'm hoping that leadership speaks to them tonight. I think one of the most frustrating things about some of the aspects of these meetings is that when people share things that aren't pretty, no one really says much. We got to go back and we have to huddle. I understand that. But I think that the students tonight, I think it would be great to hear something about those comments tonight on record to let them know that they're heard. And I do agree, Anthony, with the mental health day. You absolutely hit that nail on the head. That day was horrific for everyone, students, the staff, the administration, the parents. I have children in the school system, so I also got texts and some of the things that they heard, of course, wasn't what happened, but things get inflated as they travel the phone line. Remember that game, telephone line? By the time it gets to the end, it's something different. That was a horrific day. And I felt that on that day, things were handled well. They were handled expeditiously. Students were comforted as much as they could with so much stress going on, because the adults in the buildings and administration, they had to handle the problem. But yeah, the next day, you're right. How could we go back and go back into the schools like, okay, now we're normal? No, there's a lot of stress that day before. So you're wise beyond your years, Anthony. And I really have appreciated hearing your reports and your views on things. Very, very smart guy. You're going to go a long way. I look forward to seeing your future. So thank you. And like I said, I hope that the leaders speak to you and that other ESOM student and all the other children who are listening tonight. Let them hear something. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Jackson. Mayor
Thank you.
Ellington?
I know we have a lot to cover, and I presume Dr. Tracy is going to touch on the threats that we saw last week in her report. But I did just want to give you, Dr. Tracy, an opportunity to respond to the water issues, just so we understand what the administration has done about it. We send my daughter in every day with a water bottle, and she has a way to fill it up at school. But it sounds like there's some complaints about it. Just what is the administration's policy here regarding access to water?
Oh, Mayor, that's on my list of things to talk about.
Okay, we can wait till then.
Update on water bottle and filling stations is part of what I have on here to address.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Conway, did you have your hand up earlier?
Yeah, I did. I just want to ditto what Dr. Jackson has said. And I think that the threats just really, it pushed the system, it pushed the system over the cliff, and it's not only the students, the staff is feeling like that. I'm in the school every day. So I'm seeing actually what's happening every day with the metal detection. I'm seeing what's going on with the staff. I'm seeing what's going on with the students. So those threats really push things over the top, counting, COVID and all the other stuff that we're dealing with. And I think that, we're going to be in this space for a while. And as I always say, Dr. Tracy, we're just gonna have to just do some outside the box stuff. I think virtual learning has to be in that toolbox. I know it's a state thing, but mental health days and all that sort of stuff. I'm just, it's just pushing. It's literally pushing people over the top, and I see it every day. And I'm in the school, so I'm not. This is not something I'm theorizing. I'm actually boots on the ground. And we just got to continue to do this. I just want to say a good job was done, with everything that was going on. And we just, we can't Monday morning quarterback right now. When it happens again, because it's going to happen again, something else big is going to come. We just got to just take the experience that we have, listen to what, the students that are on the ground, listen to the staff and move forward. So there it is. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Conlon. Okay, seeing no further discussion, Dr. Tracy, is anyone reporting on teaching and learning in Dr. Joyner's absence or no?
No report on that because I think they did not have a meeting, so there's no report on teaching and learning for today.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, then you're up, Dr. Tracy, superintendent's report.
Thank you so much, Madam Secretary. And as I want my practice to be, is to share with you again what our mission vision is for New Haven Public Schools and what our priority areas are. Dr. White, again, just briefly and very quickly, we still want to highlight the strategic school plan under which many of these things that were highlighted this evening fall in terms of operations. We want to express again our core values: equitable opportunities, high expectations, culture of continuous learning, collaboration, and participation with families, New Haven, community, et cetera, et cetera. We want to emphasize our 5 priority areas: academic learning, youth, family, community engagement, operational efficiencies, culture and climate, talented educators, and of course, promote, shown there is our mission and our vision. We still believe that New Haven Public Schools can be the best public school ever. Never mind that we experience poverty and all kinds of different things. As Anthony pointed out, the drugs in our school, everything, all these things that are going on, the multitasking, the different things that we see, and also the learning issues with our students. And I'll touch more on that. So thank you, Dr. White, for highlighting those areas. Let me just say, in terms of operations, I was very pleased. Yesterday, we had hundreds of parents and students who passed through the Q House under the direction of Gemma Joseph Blumkin and her team. We were able to give out hundreds of gifts, snacks, books, etc., to our K4 families. Of course, you know, we have some older students coming through, and we also supported them at the Q House yesterday. And I think it was well organized and well done. And I was happy to see the smiles on our students and families' faces as they came through and received their gifts for their students. They took a lot of pictures. There was a section set up for picture taking for them and their students. And I thought that was well done. So kudos to Gemma and her team for setting up that. Gemma said, Doc, just say the word and we'll have it done. And she did that. Thank you, Gemma and your team. I want to also, I'm going to skip around on this, my list of things, and address so that it's in my head. The situation with the water bottle and the bottle filling stations. You know, we have ordered bottle filling stations. It's not for lack of trying. Everyone has heard about the supply chain and what is happening with things. It would have been good if we had cash money on hand to buy these things, or we would have gone to certain places and just stack up on thousands of water bottles each day for our students. Well, we don't have that ability to do that. Neither do I want any credit card for New Haven Public Schools to spend from. We have to go through a bidding process with the city of New Haven in order to get things through. And after that bidding process, it has to go out. We have to order these things, and it takes a while to get back to us. And if Ms. Lam could say some more on that later on, but I just wanted to say that it's not as easy as going to Stop and Shop and pick up bottles of waters and then service those. I want to thank the teachers. Those who have been bringing in water, and principals have also purchased water for some of their students. The district does not have that ability to get those things as quickly as possible. I just wanted to make that clear publicly before there's any misunderstanding. Thank you, Anthony, for bringing that to our attention. I get it through email from students also, so I just wanted to to address that part for clarity. We have in your packet, and I'll go back to some things later on, a budget development calendar that Ms. Hannons has put together. And I don't know if the board, you want that projected?
The calendar?
We're going to project it, get an idea. I can see it from here, but there's a budget, it says draft. There's, we're in budget season again, and there's a budget development calendar for the 2022-23 school year. I cannot believe it's that time already. 2022-2023 budget development calendar. And we have met with principals and articulate what is needed for them to do. And then Ms. Hannons and her team are working on what that budget for 2022-2023 will look like. So that's a snapshot of the draft calendar. Having said that, looking at this year's budget, and we'll have that information at the next F&O, we are looking at a deficit that will be coming up. They're analyzing and crunching the numbers right now to share, but I just wanted to quickly say that, so it's out there, that we will have a deficit in this year's budget, but we're working on mitigation efforts right now. When we get all the numbers, we'll be able to share that with the board and first at F&O. General district update, COVID test, staff, etc. We have definitely seen an uptick in COVID cases in our schools after Thanksgiving. So what does that say to us? We anticipated that those things would happen. And for those students, entire classrooms were sent out at some schools. When entire classrooms are sent out, teachers teach those students remotely. And so students were already given their computers for such situations if they happen. So at one particular school, we had over almost, I would say, given an estimation, almost 100, which is about 97 students or so that had to be put out from 7th and 8th grade because this is the challenge we have. If I have, and I do have 7 kids, say I have 7 kids, and all my 7 kids are in the different grade levels, from them going around in different grade levels, then they spread whatever is happening in the different, I wouldn't say spread, but if they tested positive, then we have to take precautions because we're not sure how many people they may have been in touch with. And so through contact tracing, so nicely done by Eric and Dr. White and the nurses, we're able to say who needs to go. Because for the most part in their classrooms, they're in their mask, but in the lunchrooms, they can't eat in their mask. So there's some expectation that those things would happen. But we're taking care of the needs of the students as we move along. So I made sure through text message, alert the board, through Justin's messages, alert the board, not text message, Justin messages, alert the board to what is going on. And he also shares that with the media. And so, Dr. White, could you tell us something about the testing of staff and students and where that is?
We still are participating in Project COVID Detect. We've sent out 2 messagings about that district-wide, and schools have sent it out individually. The first group started testing last week at a couple schools, but we still district-wide have a low participation rate, approximately 325. So if we could get that number up, that would also help in maintaining that weekly test to check to make sure students can be safe and we know that they are able, that they are COVID-free. Also, just as this opportunity to remind all families, please make sure if for some reason anyone in the household is being tested for COVID, your child should stay home. They will receive homebound excused for that day. They can log on. So if you're waiting for test results, parents, we ask that you keep that child and any siblings home while they're waiting for anyone in the home to receive their test.
Thank you, Dr. White. Okay, that takes me to
Dr. Jackson.
Dr. Jackson.
Thank you, Dr. White. Thank you so much for saying that, because that is not understood in the community in a lot of aspects. And I just want to say that I, every day, am reminding people, no, you can't send anyone anywhere. How do we get this out? Because of course there may be 70 people plus us on this call. It's that message has not penetrated our families. Trust me. It's not within the ranks of our community, because I know of at least 2 people whose kids went to school and mommy and daddy were testing and mommy and daddy were positive. So I won't reveal what the kids were, because I think that's, that's a little bit too much, but that's an issue. So I'm just saying that, thank you for saying that, but that penetrance is not there. And I think we need to work on some kind of campaign to make sure that, especially since we're coming back from the Christmas breaks, that is going to be critical.
Yes, Dr. Jackson, we will send this out again as our parent link. If we can, and work with our city partners to make sure this is also posted on the COVID-19 hub on the city side, and as well as making sure our partners message it out too when they are performing the tests, to just remind them if it's family members. And we'll be doing another blast that will go out before and during the holiday as we get ready to come back.
Thank you.
Thank you for that.
Yes, because I would imagine, that if we had the uptick during Thanksgiving with the Christmas break being longer, we're going to have an uptick there. And there just seems to be an uptick all over. So, please, let's get that message out. Could you say, Dr. Tracy, did you say something about when whole classrooms are, on the uptick, or something that we've already set up, that students have computers and we go into a virtual mode? Did you say that?
Students were given back their computers. So whenever there is an entire class that is sent out, the teachers know that they do the remote learning for their students. Yeah.
Okay. And how's attendance taken for those students? Because parents are very concerned about that.
On those days for taking for the entire class, regular attendance, but they're there.
Oh, so they're awarded like they're there.
Yes.
But they're not punished. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. All right, thanks for the questions. The other thing let's go into the school threats. As I mentioned, last week was a trying and testing week for all of us. From the superintendent down, everybody who is anybody was like taken out of their places, the mayor's office, the police department, security, everybody, all my administrative team emptied out all over the place to deal with the different crises that came up last week. And they just kept coming. And we did a lot of collaboration with the police department, with Chief Dominguez and others, to make certain decisions. Now, we closed down Cross because theirs was a first situation that came to our attention and was more serious in terms of exact description of the perpetrator down to the very T. And so that one sends a shockwave through Cross, but then they found out it was not really true. And so they lifted the lockdown and we sent the students and staff out for the rest of the afternoon. Hill House had a threat. We did the same thing. But then we realized, the police officers realized that these were just kids seemed to be copycatting and we were flooded with even to the K-8 schools getting these threats, and the messages were the same, along with a lot of racially charged words in some of those threats that we were getting. Police were on top of it right away, investigating. And if you see and watching the news, many, those who they caught who were doing those things were arrested for doing that because it disrupts the whole entire school system. Now, I need to make clear that I can't just go and give a mental health day like that. Teachers would have to make up any day that is given, they will have to make up at the end of the school year. And I tell you right now, no one wants to leave June 20 something at the end of the school year. People want to get out on time when school closes. So any day, whether board approve or have to call in emergency, would have to be made up. So against those things, we made certain decisions that we knew that many students may not show up to school the next day. We anticipated that. And remember, students in Connecticut have the right to take what is called a mental health day. So I would hope that students who probably missed that day after the incident can have their parents put in for a mental health day.
Yes, provided.
Hmm?
You provided counselors.
Oh, and I must say, thank you, Justin, that we did not take this thing lightly. We had a crisis team from central office, from Clifford Bears. Everybody was on target, going in the very day and also up to the next day and the day after, providing crisis counseling for our students and staff. So we did not take this lightly, even though it came over, you know, and we realized that students were actually doing a hoax right across the system. Even up to today, we were getting some of those same things coming through to us. So again, we collaborated with the authorities who have dealt with these situations before, and we made certain decisions that we thought was in the best interest of the district. So again, we can't just go and give a day. It would have to be made up should we do something like that. And without, I'll just stop there for that piece. But I do hear you, Anthony, and others, and I've gotten some emails around that situation. But to everything, there is a reason. And maybe I was not clear enough to express that to everybody. And I apologize if I were not very clear. I'll go on. And the last one we'll deal with transportation update. I'll go to teacher retention. Teacher retention, I know that seems to have been a very hot topic in regards to our teachers who are leaving New Haven Public Schools. So in light of that, I had asked for someone to analyze for me what it actually looked like in a couple of years back. So we looked at 2017, 2018. We had 151, and it's more than 151 teachers left the school system. That was 2017, 2018. 2018, 2019, we had 135. 2019, 2020, we had 168. 220 to 221, we had 153 as of this year, and all these years from July 1 down. That's the start of our school year. 2021 to present, we have 146. And we have different categories of teachers. We have teachers who are student facing. We have teachers who are support teachers. So we have classroom teachers. We have instructional coaches. We have media specialists, guidance counselors, special educators, bilingual, itinerant folks. So all kinds of categories of teachers leave the district. I tried my best to talk to a couple. And why are teachers leaving? Some of the things that came out, not being supported by their administrators, need more pay for the work they're doing, moving closer to home, so they're relocated when a position becomes open in their district, for better job opportunities, student behaviors take the top of this, high special education cases, and class sizes. Those were some of the preliminary things that we have coming out. And then I asked for some of them, why are some of you still remaining here? And are here for such a long time, like myself. Why are some of you remaining in New Haven Public Schools? And I get response like, they grow up in New Haven, feel supported, the level of professional growth, and love the kids and their co-workers. So we're still exploring more to get a sense of why still out of 1,900 teachers that we have, and if we add paraprofessionals in that mix, we have another 400 or so plus paraprofessionals. Why do they stay? Why do they stay in New Haven? So we have a bigger portion of our staff who are staying in New Haven rather than leaving New Haven Public School. So people leave for different reasons. And I just wanted to make that clear. We'll move on to which one is that? Transportation update. And Mr. Lamb will say something about transportation update before we move into exec session. Mr. Lamb, and I time him so he knows that. Where's Mr. Lamb?
Oh, Dr. Tracy. Thank you. I have a quick PowerPoint I'm gonna go through. Thank you very much. So in absence of Carl, I put together this short transportation update. Going through, we always want to put our strategic plan and our core values into our presentations so that we are guided by them as we develop our plans and our updates. So the first item I'm going to talk about is our driver shortage, improving communications with the bus company and with the district, school charter, field trips, and athletics. And then billing and financial implications, which we've just received our first invoice for services. And I'm going to be talking a little bit about that, but more so into executive session. Mr. Golson, you have a question? You're on mute.
I will wait until you're completed. I actually have some questions about some other parts of the report. Thank you.
You're welcome. So the first item that we're looking at is just, we're calling this closing the gap. Since the beginning of the school year, we've been monitoring the driver shortage and how the bus company has been performing to achieve a more stable driver accommodation. And right now we're at 7 drivers short, up from the beginning of the school year where we were at 27. And we've made some progress with this. We have 54 drivers that are in process and awaiting letters. 13 of those drivers have received letters within the last 2 weeks and are scheduled to test beginning this week. And then we'll have some more drivers testing out in January. We had 1 new hire who was fully licensed and as part of the recruitment plan by the bus company. And she will begin either today or tomorrow. The bus company is also looking at purchasing 15 passenger vans that with 10 of those scheduled to arrive this week. We have identified 19 routes that will be and are looking at the 10 most impactful to utilize those vans. We're looking at specifically our interdistrict and outside of New Haven routes to pull those buses that would be taking those students outside of New Haven to pull those back into the city. The sign-on bonuses are still in play. We have the $5,000 sign-on bonus for fully licensed and the $1,500, excuse me, for the non-licensed. These have no impact on the financial for the district. We've gone approximately $35,000 to $40,000 worth of bonuses that have been put out. Also, along with that, we have a referral bonus by current staff for bringing in new applicants. COVID has become a significant concern as we move over the last couple of months. Initially, in the beginning of the school year, we were averaging between 3 to 5 call outs per day. Now we're up between 25 and 30 over the last week. So this is becoming an increasing issue as we move forward. COVID is still an active part of the staffing problem within the bus company. If a driver has any kind of symptoms at all, they do not drive. They are tested every day, and they do health checks and monitoring every day as well. And that as drivers present with any kind of illness, they're not allowed to move forward with driving for that day. The communications with first student, we've had a lot of struggles with communication, and I believe it's getting better. We still have a long way to go, but we've made a lot of strides with creating a call center at the first student lot, which is active as of Friday. And fully staffed. They have brought on 6 additional staff to help monitor calls. And we've also put into play a quality review team, which is myself, Carl Jackson, Teddy Barra, and a member of our transportation work group, which has come together, which is a body of internal staff and city employees that are looking at the entire transportation program as a whole. First student added a number of customer service lines that are also helping with communications. And there's a document that is shared with first student at various points of the day that report on lateness. And those are being shared with the assistant superintendents, myself, Dr. Tracy, and a number of other internal staff that were able to communicate out when those reports come into us. On December 2nd, myself and the athletic director met with first student to review all of the transportation needs for the athletic department moving into the winter. We don't foresee any problems with the way that the first student has worked with the athletic department in the past, that they have a very strong communication process, and Eric and his team are confident that they'll be able to manage that moving into the fall and the winter months. Billing and financial, just a look at how we are billed from the 1920 school year. We were billed at this rate with the all bus rate of $520.19. In this column, we've experienced a 3% increase year over year, except for the 18-19, where we had a 7.9% increase. So moving forward from this year into next year, we'll experience another 3%. These are all of the bus types that we currently utilize. There are different numbers of and quantities that these represent, and those are outlined in our invoice from First Student. So this is a budget summary. I know we've had some conversation as a group about what is in the transportation line. So we started with 2020, which was the last normalized year for transportation. We have a couple of different areas within the budget line. The area cooperative education, which is special education transportation. And then we also have our energy fuel line, which is we provide $550,000 worth of fuel to First Student, and then anything above and beyond that is billed back from First Student, from us to First Student. And then the various lines within the First Student invoices, field trips, interdistrict, suburban towns, outplacement, intercity. And then we have a second SPED line, or special education line, which is for outplacement and special education field trips and homeless transportation. So you'll be able to see from that, these are the encumbered expenses for 2022, which come to, we also have reimbursements through magnet transportation, which equate to approximately $3 million per year. And we also have Head Start reimbursements, which approximate $287,000 per year, which offsets some of our costs. When you look at year over year, 3%, we're right in line with where we should be as far as encumbered expense. Previous year route counts, 1920 was the last normalized year. We had 321 routes. Last year we normalized at around 315. This year we're at 301 currently, so we would have to, as the fewer the routes, the tighter they are, so that they're if anything at all goes wrong, they're very likely to be late. As we add more vehicles and more drivers, we will relax those routes, and that should increase our ability to be on time. So as these 11 drivers come on board and these 10 van lines come on board, we should be able to relax our routes enough to increase our on-time performance. And then the final slide that I have is just a outline of the current billing summary for the month of September, with some of the items on here that we don't currently have, but because of COVID, we have had to incur some costs around bus disinfecting, which was a mandate by the Department of Health. And the other item that we separated out was days that we were closed and other schools within the city were operating. Historically, they have been combined. I've had them separated out for my own edification so that I understand exactly what they are and what those costs are as we start to look at each individual area of the invoice and what we can do to start mitigating some costs. That's all I have at the moment.
Thank you, Mr. Lam. Are there questions from the board?
Thank you, Mr. Lamb. Mr. Bolton, you had your hand up.
Thank you, Madam President. Yeah, I have a few questions. I guess I'll start with transportation because that's what we ended with. I'd just like to, one of our speakers earlier today talked about some of the materials we put out. We are an education system, and sometimes we have some errors, some misspelling, so on. This document has route, R-O-U-T, as opposed to routes. I was kind of confused by that, so I looked it up, and those are two different meanings and two different words. So I hope that in the future we correct that so it represents what we're trying to say. I don't think we're trying to chase people away. I think we're trying to
Thank you.
bring them along a path. So
No, I understand. Thank you.
if we could get that. Secondly, this really irks me. It always does. It's not you, Mr. Lamb, and today with this document, but it's getting these documents at such late notice that we're not able to review them and have ready questions that we may have about these documents. I don't know if this went before the finance, the F&O committee. I'm sort of imagining that it probably didn't, and maybe it should have, because then we would have had a chance to review it and ask questions, intelligent questions about it. There's some things I would have asked. For instance, I would have asked for that to see if we could get in some order that late tracking document, so we could have a sense when parents call us what's going on with our buses. In terms of the billing, I was a little confused about that. I'm still trying to figure out how we got billed more last year when our buses were barely running than the year before. I understand we were paying some costs, but I still can't understand how we paid enough cost that it was more than the year before. I don't get that. So I would have asked for a better explanation of that. I wasn't aware that Ms. Teddy was back. I'm assuming she's back at a contractor role or something. So in the future, if we could get some, I think all contractors that we bring on, we eventually bring it before the board with some kind of either non-voting or voting aspect. And maybe I missed that one, but I didn't know she was back. That's good. It's a good thing. I just would have liked to have known it before I heard it kind of mentioned, in the report. And bus disinfecting, we had a long conversation about bus disinfecting last year. I thought that we were not going to be responsible for paying that cost. I'm not quite sure what that cost is now, because it went by so quick. I didn't get a chance to read this report because it just came through about an hour ago. But I'd like to know how we got on the hook for this bus disinfecting. If you said the state said we had to pay for it, I'd like to see that executive order. I'd like to get a reference to that executive order that says that. That's in terms of transportation. In terms of the water bottle filling stations, I understand that there's some kind of backlog. Do we have any idea when those are going to be available?
February 1st. They're
February 1st.
scheduled for delivery on February 1st.
That's terrific. Okay, thank you very much. And in terms of, and I just want to say, I'm a little surprised, but not very surprised that we may be looking at a deficit this year. I understand the differences in the funding sources and so on, between the city and the state and the feds, but I'm still disappointed that we're facing a deficit. And I'm sure gonna look forward to hearing the explanation of how we got there. And that is it for me, Madam President. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bolton. Dr. Tracy?
So I need to, I should have prefaced the report with an apology, and I forgot to do that. The report from Mr. Lamb. Mr. Lamb sent it on Friday, but somehow when he believed it was sent, it was hung up in the queue, wherever it was somewhere, and then he realized and apologized profusely this morning because it was being sent with a board packet. And somehow he thought Lisa had not, Ray had received it, but unfortunately, that's that part with that. And Mr. Golson, Teddy is back with us part-time because of Mr. Carl is ill at this moment. And so Teddy is supporting us part-time. Thank God she was there to step in to help us. Good old Teddy.
Thank you, Dr. Tracy. Mr. Wilcox and Mr. Bolton.
Thank you. I just wanted to touch on two things. One was starting with the water, that it's good to know that the water filling stations will be in February 1st, but it'll take weeks, if not months, to put it into 40 plus school buildings. So think that we will I know we will have on our next finance and operations agenda meeting a discussion item on what the plans are to make the water situation better, understanding that we have to abide by purchasing regulations, rules, laws, etc. But do we have anything that can be done to make this easier for the teachers and the building administrators who are so kindly stepping in to make sure that water is available? I know that we get a lot of good people that if we put our mind to it, we are going to find something to make that a little bit better so that it's better for the students. The second thing is I appreciated the comments on the teacher retention information. This is a conversation we did start in finance and operations last week, and one that I want to continue with. I am very interested in finding out, and I'm approaching this with a Comer model, no fault fact finding. People leave, people stay. It's good to know why they leave and stay. And it's good to listen to what the teachers and other staff are saying. I've had a lot of conversations with folks over the last couple of weeks. I appreciate people taking the time to talk to me. And I am hoping that as we move forward, we can figure out ways to increase the number of people staying, because as I've been told, districts outside of New Haven are trying to poach our teachers because of the statewide national teacher shortage. So it's all the more reason for us to be listening as we are and to continue. And I know we're going to continue with that. So thank you for addressing that this evening. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Wilcox. Mr. Bolton and then Dr. Tracy.
Thank you, Madam President. I understand things happen, especially with computer systems and reports getting caught up in the system or whatever. But it's not like when we are in the school and we can print out a bunch of copies and put them on the table so the parents and the people in the audience and the press could get a copy and follow along as well as us. We're virtual now, so we have we have the press and the parents who are out there, and they're looking at the presentation and it's zooming by, and they're not able to report to. I mean, we count on them to report what happens at these meetings to the general public who can't attend or don't have the time to attend or whatever our meetings. So I hope that when these things do happen, we find a way to either put it off until everybody gets the information, or get the information to folks a little quicker. I mean, I think somebody suggested earlier, maybe especially to the board members, send some kind of text notice or something that you got something to look for in your emails, because I certainly didn't look in mine before the meeting. Even though it didn't even arrive before the meeting, even if it had, I would have seen it. So thank you very much, Madam President and Dr. Tracy.
Point well taken.
Dr. Tracy.
So, and my habit is always to send a group text. This time it didn't happen. So, all right. So I need to say, with regard to teachers and teacher retention, Hamlin Public Schools just raised teacher salaries. And I need to put New Haven on notice that that would be problematic for New Haven if we do not follow suit and do similar things for our teachers. There's a national teacher shortage. Connecticut is no different. New Haven is no different. As a matter of fact, the three major urban school systems are experiencing teacher shortage more than they have ever seen before, because we still have vacancies that have not been filled, and it's not for lack of trying. So if a system next door to us is offering teachers an incentive of, 20,000, 15,000, or even more than that, then poaching will continue. It will continue, because if I'm a young teacher, why wouldn't I even go? Probably a more veteran teacher may not root up and leave, but a teacher who is, in for just a couple of years, that's 20,000, 10,000 more is a big jump in their salary. So I think we have to start thinking as a board, all of us, myself included, about what the next teacher contract will look like, so that we don't have that problem that we have certified teachers in front of our students.
Mr. Bolton?
Thank you, Madam President. I welcome those kind of comments, because I'm always supporting adding to the teachers and the paraprofessionals of salaries. But it sounds as though we're getting into that territory that people always slap me down with, and that is, are we starting to negotiate against ourselves? I think we all agree that we want to see teacher salaries go up, but for the superintendent to announce it at a board meeting kind of puts us in a less strengthful bargaining position, I would imagine. But Dr. Tracy, I support you 100%. Keep it on with that.
Thank you, Mr. Bolton.
I diddle that.
We know that teachers are being poached, so it's not like a negotiation. I'm just making us aware that this is happening and that we start thinking about what we need to do.
Double down, Madam, double down on it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Tracy. Any other discussion? Okay.
Wait a minute. So that ends, I think that's the end of my report. Yes, that's the end of my report. Thank you, Madam President.
Sounds good, Dr. Tracy. Thank you. I forgot to ask if that concluded your report.
That's the end of my.
Thank you.
What a way to conclude it.
So in your packets, you have the proposed calendar dates for our board meetings and the committee meetings for your review. We didn't add it to the agenda as an action item, but I'm not sure if, I guess we could vote on it if we decided to add it to the agenda as a voting item, or we could vote on it on our first meeting in January. Either way, I think it's okay. Mr. Bolton?
Madam President, I'd rather vote on it now so that we go into the new year with the calendar already in place.
Okay. I agree. It's just that we didn't add it as an action item, so I figured let's just look at it and then come back to it. But
I would make a motion to amend the agenda to add the 2023 proposed committee dates. Committee and board dates?
Yes, the board of ed dates is that
The
first.
board of ed and committee dates.
Second.
Second. Any discussion? If I don't know who's sharing, but if you could stop sharing, because I can't see everyone on my screen. Okay, thank you. Any discussion? Okay, so we'll vote on amending the agenda to add the calendar action item. Mr. Wilcox?
Yes.
Dr. Jackson?
Yes.
Mr. Conway,
Yes.
Mr. Fulton,
Yes.
Mr. Ferrari still? Mayor Elicker,
Yes.
and I'm yes as well. So we added that to the calendar, and so I guess the next would be a motion to accept Mr. Thursday's, Mr. Conway,
So moved.
for a second.
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 And I guess for the secretary, who's gonna do the second officially?
No. Doesn't make a difference.
Okay. Thank you. Any discussion? Okay, seeing none, we'll vote to accept the proposed calendar dates for the Board of Ed and committee meetings. Dr. Jackson,
Yes.
Mr. Bolton,
Yes.
Mr. Conway,
Yes.
Mr. Wilcox,
Yes.
and Elicker,
Yes.
and I am a yes as well. And so these are the dates for 2022-2023 meetings. And then I just want to take a quick moment just to wish our board members, our staff, our students, their families, and the community a joyous and safe holiday season. Stay safe, stay healthy, and have a happy new year. With that, we'll move on to the Head Start report. Mr. Wilcox.
This will be brief because we have not met since the last board meeting. We will meet this Thursday at 5 o'clock.
Citywide school building.
The Citywide School Building Committee met last Thursday. And as always, I invite you all to take a look at the Stewardship Report that's posted under the meeting materials for that meeting on our website, which gives a rundown of updates on major projects in the district. And done with that. And then just in the finance and operations, we've already discussed some of the things that we talked about, like teacher retention. One other thing that I wanted to bring to your all's attention is we also had a report from Mr. Lamb concerning the work order system. We got to take a look at the School Dude system, which is the order tracking or the ticket tracking system. And we've been hearing about a lot of changes that they've been trying to make as they more fully utilize the system and make it so that they can get reports out of it. So some encouraging information. And then they also express that they have a ways to go and some issues they're still working through with outside vendors and so on, but progress is being made. With better data in the system, it should be easier for building leaders to be able to go in and check the status on any work order tickets in their buildings. But that's one thing I wanted to bring to your all's attention. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wilcox. Governance report, Dr. Jackson.
Okay, good evening. So this is I think my last report governance chair of 2021. And I just want to, one, recognize the efforts of, I call them my governance crew that worked with me over the last 4 years in governance. I want to recognize Miss Tiffany Jackson. I want to recognize Gemma Joseph Lumpkin. I want to recognize Miss Joanne Wilcox. And those are like the regulars who were always at the governance meetings. And we worked hard, we were cordial. It was always a great meeting. And just, being governance chair has meant a lot. I didn't realize how much I would enjoy governance because I always felt that governance committees were like stressful. And they always had so much work to do, but I didn't, I felt like I came into my own on this board as chair on the governance committee. And I want to thank Darnell for appointing me the first time. And I remember looking at him like, what in the world, governance? And then I want to thank Yesenia for allowing me to continue. I just want to quickly touch on some of the things that I just want to remind people how hard we did work, and some of the things that we were able to bring to fruition. We were able to work on the equity policy, get that through. We were able to get the code of conduct with restorative practices off the shelf and get it passed so that we could start implementation and training. And that was really, really a big deal. And I think all the work that was put into that. The internal IRB, the procurement policy, Dr. Joyner really helped with that also, the procurement policy for vendors, the gender affirming policy, and the opt-out support policy, which I don't know if any of you realize how much that meant for me as an opt-out parent, to see that the district is interested in making sure that the families that are opting out are supported. So I want to thank everyone that supported the efforts of the governance committee while I've been chair. So that's it. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you, Dr. Jackson. Mayor Elicker?
Just want to thank Dr. Jackson MacArthur for all the work that she has done, in particular on the governance committee. I mean, she's been the center of a lot of major efforts to move important issues forward. And I think that's a testament to her leadership. Thank you so much for the work you've done, Dr. Jackson.
Thank you, Mayor Elicker. I just want to remind everyone, this is not their last board meeting though. Thank you.
Well, kind of, but
Mr. Golton.
Yes, and that kind of leads into question I had, a point of order and a point of personal privilege. Point of order is, unless the charter has changed over the last couple of years, my understanding is unless these two board members resign, they are still sitting members until the Board of Alders approves their replacements. Is that correct?
That is my understanding as well, which is why I said this is not their last board meeting.
All right. My second point is, when that does happen, it's, for me, it's going to be a sad time to see those two very capable and experienced board members leave. They bring their own different experiences to the board. One is a longtime administrator, Mr. Conaway, who knows this system inside and out as a guy who had, as he said, still has boots on the ground, and has those internal contacts, could hear some of the stuff that's happening that many of us who don't have those relationships could hear. And I'm disappointed that he's not going to be able to bring that experience to the board in the future. And Dr. Jackson brings a whole different set of experiences to this board as a doctor, as a community member, and as a parent of children in this system. And they are going to be sorely missed by me, as well as others, I'm sure. And I just don't, the board will go on as it has for the hundreds of years that has been in existence, but it will certainly be a different board over the next couple of years. And it's going to be interesting to see how we develop. Thank you, Madam President, for indulging me the time.
Thank you, Mr. Golton.
Madam Chair, can I just say one more thing?
I don't know if you're muted or if something happened.
Oh no, I'm not.
Okay, go ahead.
I forgot to thank Mr. Wilcox, who I have talked his ear off on many occasions, and he has been so truthful with me and honest with me. And there have been some things that I really couldn't figure out that his perspective helped me. So I just wanted to thank him also publicly.
Thank you, Dr. Jackson. Mr. Wilcox?
I just want to thank my colleague for that. And I'm thinking that they're going to be here, as was pointed out by Mr. Goldson and you, President Rivera. They continue to serve until they are, the Board of Alders votes on other folks. So I imagine we'll have another chance to say something to them. But if we don't, it's a pleasure serving with you all. And you all still have my number. And I love to hear from either of you or any of board members and members of the public. So thank you all very much.
Thank you, Mr. Wilcox. Food Service Task Group, Mr. Connolly?
Thank you. This will probably be my last food service task force report out to the full board. I certainly want to thank Gail, Sherry, Mr. Lamb, Cheryl Myers, and Matt Wilcox, both on both finance and operations and food service. Thank you, Matt. It's been a pleasure. Mr. Golson, thank you for those kind words. Dr. Jackson, it's been a pleasure serving with you. I'd be remiss if I didn't thank Mayor Harp for the opportunity. Thank you, Mayor Harp, if you're out there listening. And I'm here to serve. So thank you, President Rivera, for your leadership, and Dr. Tracy and her staff. Food Service Task Force is an important committee. The three major things that we're talking about is life-threatening food allergy. The advocacy group, we're concerned about the supply chain right now, and of course the food allergy policy. So whoever takes over that committee, I know Matt's going to be on it. So just keep those things in the forefront. And this committee is much more important than one thinks it is. And just keep those things on the forefront. Again, thank you. And thank you to the community too, those families and those students who have given me some very kind words. So that concludes my report.
Thank you, Mr. Connolly. Okay, so no further discussion. I move that we go into executive session pursuant to Connecticut General Statutes 120068 regarding strategy and negotiations with respect to pending claims or pending litigation. And also pursuant to Connecticut General Statutes 12006E. And the first one was 6B, not 8. Contacts are failing me today. 6E and 1210B10 regarding discussion of exempt written communications and the information contained therein privileged by the attorney-client relationship concerning the transportation agreements. And I'll invite Dr. Tracy, Mr. Lamb, Mr. Jackson, and Ms. Hammonds, except that Mr. Jackson isn't here today. So Ms. Hammonds. You all received the link to go into executive session, but don't go yet because we have to vote. Mr. Goldson?
Madam President, could you mention again who was going to be in that executive session?
Dr. Tracy, Mr. Lamb, and Ms. Hammonds.
Ilya.
And Attorney Ilya Alexiadis.
Yeah, okay. And are we not having our chief of staff in there also, or is that not needed at this point?
If you want our chief of staff, I'm sure you'll be willing to come in there.
I think that's probably a position that probably needs to be in there. I would suggest, but
Thank you, Mr. Bolton. Attorney Alexiadis?
Sending to.
I'm sorry. One other point. I think we mentioned before about having our communications person in there in case we had to communicate any information to the public.
Okay.
Attorney Alexiadis? Thank you, Mr. Bolton.
I would simply note that we've got two topics for executive session and the litigation-related matter. My recommendation is we take that up second because we would, at that point, excuse most of the other participants in the transportation executive session, and we would just continue with just just myself and the board members on that aspect of it. That part should be very short, but I expect, by the way.
Thank you. So we'll add Mr. Harmon and Mr. Finley to the executive session. I'm not sure if they received the executive session Zoom link, Ms. Hammonds. They muted.
I resent the email.
Okay, thank you. Is there a second on the motion?
Second.
Thank you.
Give it to the mayor.
Any discussion? Okay, seeing none, we'll go and go into executive session for those two matters. Dr. Jackson,
Yes.
Mr. Wilcox,
Yes.
Mr. Conway,
Yes.
Mr. Goldson,
Yes.
Mayor Elicker,
Yes.
and I'm a yes as well. Let's see in executive session. Dr. Lee, first.
Yes.
Yes.
Alright, so we are out of executive session and back in regular session. There were no votes in executive session. And if there's no further discussion, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Mr. Wilcox,
Yes.
Dr. Jackson,
Yes.
Mr. Conway,
Yes.
Mr. Bolton,
Yes.
I'm a yes, and Mayor Elicker.
Yes.
All right, good night, everyone.